Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Pakistan, of course, has rejected the Indian Supreme Court's recent and past ruling endorsing the revocation of Article 370, which of course granted special status to Jammu and Kashmir. Of course, we'll be talking about the ramifications of this development as far as the rulings, of course, have failed to acknowledge the internationally recognized dispute and disputed status of Jammu and Kashmir. We'll be talking about that, of course, the human rights violations which are flagrant, and India has continued to violate them in the face of all that of course the world has seen. We'll be talking about this. We'll be talking about the right of self-determination, the UN resolutions which have been flouted left, right and center by India blatantly. Of course, the international recognition of the dispute as well. All of that today on Perspective. We have with us Mumtaz Zahra Baloch, who is a Foreign Office spokesperson. Thank you for being with us. Overall, as far as this latest development is concerned, of course, this is consistent of India's stance to violate principles of human rights, and and of course the revocation of Article 370 is a case in point on that. How do you look at this recent development particularly?
Well, Pakistan rejects the latest decision by the Indian Supreme Court, just as we rejected its judgment of 11th December on the status of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The reality is that international law and all aspects of UN resolutions point to the fact that UN Security Council, Kashmir is in a disputed territory, and that UN Security Council resolutions have pointed the way forward for the final disposition of Jammu and Kashmir, and that is that it should take place as per the aspirations of the Kashmiri people. Such decisions by the Indian Supreme Court do not have merit in international law, and Pakistan rejects that.
As far as Pakistan is concerned, in terms of course, furthering our stance on Kashmir, taking it forward, and ICJ particularly with regard to that, how does Pakistan now plan to pursue this as far as internationally and with regard to the ICJ is concerned?
Well, legally and according to international law, we do not believe it is a conflicted case. The law, international law, is very clear. And it is clearly pointing to the fact that Kashmir is a disputed territory, and there are how the Kashmir dispute is to be resolved is also very clear, and that is according to the UN Security Council resolution and as per the aspirations of the Kashmiri people. So there is, we believe, a clear understanding and a clarity in international law, and that is what Pakistan would like to work on and move forward on. Basically, we want the international community to press India to implement the UN Security Council resolutions and ensure that the plebiscite is held as per the UN Security Council resolution, so that the people of Jammu and Kashmir can decide their own future.
Ms. Baloch, even otherwise, as far as what's happening in India, and of course, Pakistan has, of course, talked about it from time to time in terms of the political gain, the short-term political gain for the Modi campaign underway, the Modi election underway overall, and the way that it is shaping India is a cause of concern globally, is it not? Not just for Pakistan now.
Well, the fact is that in Indian politics, Pakistan bashing has become a norm, and many political leaders believe that by criticizing Pakistan and bashing Pakistan is the recipe for electoral gains. And that is why we have seen increased level of rhetoric coming from the Indian side. And Pakistan, for its as far as Pakistan is concerned, we reject all such statements, and we believe that India must abide by international law. The international community has come to realize that India is becoming a rogue state where it is going forward and indulging in extraterritorial and extrajudicial killings in territories outside India. And that is a reality which has now dawned upon the international community.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your very valuable time, Ms. Baloch. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to go to Dr. Adnan Sarwar now. Dr. Adnan, we were just speaking to Mumtaz Baloch, who's the Foreign Office spokesperson, and she was saying that, of course, the world has now started to acknowledge what's happening, what India is doing under the Modi regime, and of course, we've also seen the focus on short-term electoral gain for the Modi government and the way that they have tried to use this issue blatantly, stamping on human rights. Do you think that this is, of course, a recognition and an acknowledgement of the success of Pakistan's diplomacy? Can you hear me?
Yes, actually, well, thank you very much for your question, Ms. Mahrukh. I would like to state here that these are two separate tracks, and the countries of the world are actually the internationally legal personalities. And in case of a local verdict of any court or elections, you see, they can never be an alternative to an international law which has been actually there in the shape of United Nations Security Resolutions of 13th of August 1948 and 5th of January 1949, as well as Resolution 122 of 1957, which clearly states that not any local elections or anything of that sort, but the UN plebiscite to be held under the United Nations would only be the final solution to this inalienable right of the people of Jammu and Kashmir as per their free wishes. So India, if it is trying to hoodwink the international media and people of South Asia by stating that Supreme Court rulings there or the elections inside India currently going on is the panacea of the Kashmir dispute, it is a total lie. This they cannot continue with. It's not sustainable because the world community and the international legal experts know it very well that international law is there, United Nations resolutions are there, and whatever India says are just, those stands are very, very naive.
Right, fair enough. Let me include Dr. Shabana Fayyaz and then I'll come back to you. Dr. Shabana, can you hear me?
Please, Mahrukh. I'm here.
Dr. Shabana, we've been talking about this from time to time, but the situation at this time where we are looking at the leadership of India use this this extremist sentiment for political gain. And of course, we've seen the recent Supreme Court decisions overall. Do you think that this is, of course, the world now acknowledges this as a cause for concern globally also. Do you think that our diplomacy perhaps needs to go a step further now, and now is that time where we can bring it home perhaps?
This is a very critical point, Mahrukh, that I think this is being seen as a total disregard of the human rights value that the Indian Constitution initially has been a part of, and a disregard of the UN resolutions as well. Saying that diplomacy within us and the region, it is a big challenge. And I think Pakistan has always stood for its moral grounds and for the international community and human rights principles at all. But unfortunately, what we have seen is that India continues to use its economic uplift to foster its aggressive designs in Kashmir and also carry out the repressive policies vis-a-vis the minorities, specifically not only among the Muslims that are largely subjected to its irresponsible behavior and gruesome behavior, the other minorities that also live in India, like Sikhs, like Parsis, and others have been subjected to their brutality.
And that itself, of course, is a cause for concern globally, because we are looking at, like you said, it's not just the Muslims now, it's not just, it's Christians also, it's Parsis also, and it's happening across the board. And for this to be, for India to continue to be a safe place for minorities is now in question. As far as Kashmir is concerned, as far as, the Kashmiri diaspora is concerned, what do you see as the next logical step for us, of course, to further this cause for the Kashmiris?
The role of Kashmiri diaspora is very, very critical. And the ones who have gone from migrated from Indian-held Kashmir and also from the Pakistan Azad Kashmir, they are very active and vibrant outside, whether it is US, whether it is in UK, whether it is in Europe and large. And unfortunately, they have trying their best, but there has not been more than a pressure group. And I think although most of them are very well educated and settled, but that needs to have a synergy across the continents to forge a better alliance versus this. In the UN headquarters, there are a lot of lobbyists who cause the Kashmir cause, and there have been very excellent results with both parts of the parties, whether Trump party or the other parties, the senators have lobbied against this aggression of India versus the Muslims in the Indian-held Kashmir. But of course, that needs more momentum. And I think the most important for Pakistan is that we really need to reinvent. We can't discard, and we should not be discarding the old principles of our diplomatic relations, but we really need to re-energize, to synergize more, and to look into an innovative way, make new partnerships across the world. And like in case of Israel and Palestine case, we have seen a couple of days before, Ireland, Spain, Norway, all have declared that they recognize the Palestine as a separate state. So this sort of, these are the, although our Prime Minister has been in contact with the Ireland Prime Minister as well, and has appreciated this step, I think this sort of these steps needs to be pursued more, and specifically within the OIC platform as well.
As far as overall, let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Dr. Adnan Sarwar with this. Dr. Adnan, as far as people's role is concerned in determining the future, we've seen that, Wani argued that a plebiscite and not elections is necessary to ascertain the will of the people in a disputed region like Kashmir. We've seen the Hurriyat stance also. For this, for this stance to be taken up as far as, the international community is concerned, we acknowledge that India is misleading the world. We acknowledge that India is flouting the principles of international law, the principles of international justice. But the question is, when is that consideration going to override India's clout?
Well, a very important question once again. I'll say to this question that, well, it has to be tackled by the people and the government of Pakistan, as well as the government and people of AJK, and the people particularly who are in the IIOJK, that they, first of all, continuously struggle for their cause, even if peacefully, and peaceful demonstrations, say, every week or every fortnight, that is a must. They must not be lukewarm, and the kind of demonstrations that they were holding after August 5, 2019, and that kind of a spirit and that kind of zeal ought not to be discontinued. Number one. Pakistan also, from time to time, and just not once a year on 5th of February, should be telling this story much more forcefully and with dynamic diplomacy to the Pakistanis, to the AJK people of Kashmir and IIOJK people of Kashmir, and to the people of world at large. But most important point on which I would be stressing is that Pakistan, for this purpose, that India cannot just play this drama in front of the world. Pakistan has to be inside itself politically and economically on a very strong footing. And that would actually lead towards the strong foreign policy of Pakistan overall, and particularly on Kashmir. But you see, just as Dr. Mujahid Gilani, who is the nephew of Ms. Asiya Andarabi, has said it just recently, that there are lots of stories which the world does not know about in the IIOJK. Those stories ought to be very, very clearly told to the world community. And the diaspora and all those articles ought to be written by the intellectuals in the world top leading newspapers and magazines and journals, as well as you see some regular demonstrations in the key capitals of the world ought to be organized. I mean, the publicity side of that in a dynamic diplomacy and public diplomacy also has to be started here much more effectively, proactively. I believe that if this tempo is continued, tempo is not broken. There is no reason why you see alongside with the Palestinians, the Kashmiris suppressed and oppressed Kashmiris' voice is not heard.
Let me go to Dr. Shabana. Dr. Shabana, isn't this the right time for the world to, we're looking at what's happening in Palestine, we're looking at the world also, you know, there is a change. One has to acknowledge perhaps 0.1% and the suffering of the people of Palestine, and you know, we've seen and it's continuing. But the question is that change is perhaps, this is the right momentum for us to bring about Kashmir also. And, you know, perhaps this is that time. Do you acknowledge that you know, perhaps time is of the essence here in that sense?
You very well stated the connection between the two. I must say, I and my department and at the university, we have organized a lot of seminars, and specifically with Dr. Mujahid Gilani and many others have invited them, Palestinian and the Kashmiris, to highlight the nexus that exists between the human rights value that cannot be denied under any circumstances. And this goes back to the relationship between the Palestinians' head, you know, the way back, and the religious scholars and the, you know, the Kashmiri leaders and Pakistani leaders before this suppression and takeover of Kashmir. So this is something of a historical nexus. And second point is that we are living in a digital age. And I think most of our new generation and even people like us are now relying more on the online sources of information. And what has happened in case of Palestine is it is the voice of the civil society and the citizenship, not by the Muslims only, by the non-Muslims that have stood up against the human rights gruesome actions, violations by the Israelis. And unfortunately, in our parties, although Kashmiri diaspora, Pakistani scholars, Muslim scholars have been highlighting these aspects, and they are well documented in Amnesty and Human Rights Watches and any other reports. But so far, these have been carpeted because because of their own aggressive lobbying that is very, very active, and their linkages with the actors like Israel and many other states, they have somehow managed to, you know, make the other powers look the other way. So this is something, and I think this is a very although it is a very tragic moment, the way the human lives are being lost on both sides, but it is also a moment of awakening for the global citizens to rise against these things that are happening in both cases.
Right. Let me go to Dr. Adnan. Dr. Adnan, what about, you know, Dr. Shabana is also talking about rallying, globally rallying behind the cause, Kashmiri cause. How do we go about it, in your opinion, from here, for example? You know, there has to be, of course, consistency. There has to be overall a renewed effort in that sense. To what do you think, in which direction does Pakistan now need to take this, in your opinion?
Well, obviously, Dr. Shabana's concerns are right, and I would again say, with re-emphasis, that along with whatever is going on in IIOJK, if the not only government of Pakistan but people of Pakistan also, instead of having just internal political gossip of different political parties here for power struggle, they highlight this internationally acknowledged dispute, which is very, very close to Pakistan, all governments of Pakistan. It's a core national interest of Pakistan on which Pakistan doesn't compromise. So I believe if this is aired on the social media and these kinds of digital forums, but along with that, you see, I think, well, if I'm not that much utopian in this, if somehow at some point in time ICJ is moved to the human rights abuses of India, just like you see, well, that may not be accepted by some of the pro-Indian types of lawyers, but still you see a very strong impact can be created there. And telling the story is documented, and it already has been done also by the government of Pakistan in the yesteryears. So I believe that if this is, and if the lawfare, taking the international law situation, warfare is not just the only solution, because Indian forces there are in plenty of numbers and the Kashmiris are armless. But you see, lawfare as well as international public diplomacy and very dynamic diplomacy on Kashmir, diaspora's views, diaspora ought to be fully supported, I would say, by the government of Pakistan in every respect. And their very useful seminars ought to be conducted and given financial resources also by the government of Pakistan.
You know, Pakistan government has stood by the Kashmiri cause, and of course, you know, for us it is our own cause, and we have always been consistent in trying to further it, trying to take it globally, trying to get the world to rally. The real issue seems to be the power that India feels in the international circuit. We are, you know, don't you think the parallel is, for example, what Israel enjoys in a sense, you know, as far as the world clout, as far as the world powers standing behind it are concerned? In a sense, there are parallels to be drawn there, no?
Well, the point is that India's clout may be there, and nobody can stop it from going upwards economically. But you know, India has got these days a very bad track record of internal political administration, particularly towards minorities and the Kashmiris. And you see, India is now a divided society. The world also has been looking at that, and the big actors of international community are raising concern over that. So I think this is a very, very right time. And, you know, Modi's Kashmir performance in the election was almost zero. They didn't contest even there. So this all needs to be highlighted very effectively. So railing of the voices in favor of India, I think that would wither away. But the point is just our steadfastness, consistency, and the heroic struggle to be carried out very, very effectively by the IIOJK people and fully supported by AJK and Pakistan. And I think that diaspora then can spread it all over the world in their own way. So I believe that it's not something which is sacrosanct, that India would always be welcomed by the countries of the world despite this inhuman treatment of the Kashmiris and their extremist Hindutva politics in India, which is alienating not just Kashmiris but the rest of the other communities, religious as well as cultural in India.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adnan Sarwar. Thank you for giving us, you know, the accurate picture. I'm going to go to Dr. Shabana. Dr. Shabana, there is, you know, what Dr. Adnan is saying. I hope you followed what he was saying. He's saying that, you know, of course, the reality of it, the camouflage at play, the kind of, you know, of course, it's the kind of subterfuge we are looking at as far as India is concerned. There is overall a chink in the armor. We have seen the world see India for what it is, and in a sense, and for that, of course, to continue is we of course Modi also, and the kind of censure we are looking at, the kind of permanent revocation of internet services, the kind of bans that we are looking at are there in place. But even then, reality does permeate. And as far as the issue in ICJ is concerned, as far as the world globally is concerned, it is looking beyond that surface. Do you think that's true?
Yes, you have rightly pointed out all the criticalities and the node points that define, the trajectory of what has been happening in Indian-held Kashmir, and has really, really impacted the life of the people there and made them more miserable. They have been subjected to the digital iron curtain, and in fact, that has really made them more resilient. And I think in case of Pakistan, what we need to do is we need to use the digital means and to reach out to the diaspora that exists outside that. Because given the Pakistans, what options we have to be very realistic and, I must say, proactive in our approach. Appointing new advisors and giving more portfolios and committees, I personally feel it won't work. Why? Because we already have done a lot of homework. We have done brilliant exercises. What we really need is to rethink and connect the dots. And that really calls for us, to not to only have the policy outside, but the policy within. And that, as Professor Adnan has rightly said, the people of Azad Kashmir, although they are very vibrant, but sometimes because of their politics as well, the very cause and becomes a matter of politics and division. So number one, at that level, at the mainland Pakistan, all are united, but we need to have the diversity and innovation with it. And then you reach to the regional actors. Mostly the regional actors, in case of South Asia, we have in a way ignored them. Or other way, they have stood silent as spectators between the wars or the warmongering going between India and Pakistan. And we can utilize the forum of SAARC. Obviously, that is not for bilateral issues. But on the sidelines, there are many incidents where India and Pakistan have, both sides have been able to have the cordial relations resumed. And then it's at the highest level with our neighbors and the stakeholders, and then the dominant actors at the global space. So I think this is a step-by-step tier approach. But obviously, as a policy thinker, one can only give some suggestions. The way lies with the political will and the political and the implementers regarding this cause.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, Dr. Shabana. Thank you for your very valuable input on joining us on this very important topic. I want to move on to the next segment. We have with us Abid Suleri, who is a senior economist. Thank you for being with us today. We want to talk about, of course, the pledges as far as the SIFC meeting is concerned. And, of course, we've seen the statements come in. The Prime Minister addressed the 10th meeting, and he talked about foreign investment. He talked about the fact that now the working of the CIFC is, of course, undisputed, the way that it has managed to make inroads into the economic progress for Pakistan, which will translate very soon. We will be looking at gains, we will be looking at agreements, we are looking at bilateral agreements with really important countries, for example, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and of course the commitment to ensure that Pakistan stays firmly on the economic progress. We'll be talking about all of that today. Abid Saab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Abid Saab, as far as this meeting was concerned, as far as the Prime Minister's following address was concerned, this overall, we also saw the press conference then that was followed by the Minister of Information and Commerce, and overall, how do you look at the way things are shaping up? We have for a while seen stability return. We have for a while seen the inroads into investment. We've also seen the stabilization of dollar. Overall, how do you look at it now?
Well, I think we are at a crossroad after successfully completing this standby agreement with IMF and with attracting at least some pledges from Saudi Arabia, from UAE, and Prime Minister will be on way to China very soon as well. This is a moment that need to be capitalized and need to be actually captured. Now, as far as SIFC, as you were mentioning, the difference between 2018 and this time is that now we have a statutory body, SIFC. So back in 2018, 2019, if you remember that the heads of governments and states from all friendly countries, they visited Pakistan, they signed MOUs, they signed agreements, and then due to different reasons, and the reasons were quite obvious. At some instances, it was bureaucratic hurdles. At others, there was lack of clarity, whether it was a provincial matter or a federal government's mandate. In still some other cases, it was court stay orders, and in still other cases, it was a very poor follow-up. So all these things, they actually hampered the previous government's attempts to bring foreign direct investment in Pakistan. Now, this time on the replica of NCOC, where we had all key decision makers sitting at one place, looking at the issue, identifying the bottlenecks, and making damage control measures there and then following it up again in a month's time or whatever the frequency was. It was quite easy to actually fight with that pandemic. And now this similar modality is adopted by SIFC, where we have all the chief ministers and, of course, other key players sitting there. And their job will be to do a comprehensive follow-up of where there are hurdles in materializing the MOUs that are being signed, who is responsible for what, and what needs to be done to take it further. And these three things, SIFC is very well placed to take care of it. And I keep on repeating myself, and at the cost of repetition, I'll again say that this is our moment where we need to prove that as a nation, as a country, following the whole of the country, whole of the government approach, we can attract investment. Otherwise, we'll keep on relying on expensive loans. We'll keep on relying on these bailout packages and asking our friends to keep deposit their money in our state bank on interest, so that we can somehow show our enhanced foreign exchange reserves.
The Prime Minister specifically spoke about the negative propaganda that surrounded the promulgation of the SIFC, and of course the fact that it has categorically been laid to rest, because we've seen the way that it has worked and of course played its role in stabilizing things. Do you agree with that?
Yes, the best response to any criticism is performance. And one or two deals, if they get materialized, the propaganda or any sort of criticism against SIFC, or for that matter against any institution, that would automatically die down. So obviously, while people, some segments, they criticize SIFC and all others, they keep on doing their role. The most positive thing that happened today was participation of KP Chief Minister in SIFC. Till yesterday, there were a lot of rumors that he is not invited, and if invited, he will not join. But despite the political polarization in the country, he was invited and did join. And that gives a very positive signal for the guests from both sides to rest of the world, that while we do have our political differences, and they prevail in any democracy. So no democracy can claim that all of the political parties they're on same page. Of course,
as far as the economic progress of Pakistan is concerned, all political parties remain on one page. You're saying that this message, was sent categorically. Of course, we've seen with regard to participation by every province, and of course, furthering that goal which Pakistan remains committed on. As far as this overall SIFC, the role of SIFC is concerned, even internally speaking, of course, as far as stabilizing things for local businesses, for, the business community playing its role, we've seen that happen also, right?
Yes, it does, because that automatically boosts confidence of local investors. When they will see that their counterparts from overseas, they are coming and they want to invest in Pakistan, obviously that would boost their confidence, and that would help government and the provincial government enhancing the credibility for investors and for local businesses as well.
As far as stability overall is concerned, as far as UAE's commitment to invest $10 billion in Pakistan is concerned, which is, of course, the Prime Minister said the trust, it's evidence of the trust that they have in Pakistan. Do you see that multiplying once that actually translates? Because it will be, of course, followed by other countries also. We've seen, like you said, the visit to China.
Now is the time to materialize any of these pledges. It is a first drop of the rain, and then you would say that things they would automatically start getting better. So I can sum it up that we are on a positive trajectory. We have actually identified and diagnosed many of the economic problems. Pakistan is under negotiation with the IMF for next package, which, to my opinion, would be after the passage of next finance bill or the next budget for the next financial year. So that would be an IMF's umbrella and IMF letter of comfort that Pakistan is following prudence, fiscal and economic and monetary policies. And after that, if any transaction, it gets materialized, no matter UAE, Saudi Arabia, China, Qatar, or whoever, that would automatically be the beginning of our takeoff. And now we need to capitalize upon this moment, and we need to materialize our.
It's also indicative of, do you think there is speculation, some speculation surrounding the IMF, of course, and the agreement? Do you think that this will follow after the IMF? Once it realizes the agreement?
Most of it will follow after the IMF. The next budget, the federal budget, that would be a litmus test for the government to prove how serious it is in bringing these economic and governance and policy reforms, including SOEs, including broadening the tax nets, including withdrawing some of the GST exemptions, and pension reforms, etc. So these are the commitments that successive governments in Pakistan, they have been making with IMF for last many programs, almost for last 2 decades now. And gradually these things, they piled up to a situation where we are today. So IMF would like to see that most of these things, they get addressed in finance bill for the next year's fiscal budget. As government have numbers, so government would be able to get this bill passed in the parliament, and that would somehow complete and fulfill the quote-unquote the prior actions that Pakistan needs to take. And afterwards, there would be an IMF agreement, and that would be the time when you will see most of these bilaterals, they'll be materializing what they have pledged or what they are committing.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, Abid Suleri. Thank you for joining us. Of course, as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, he spoke exclusively about the role the SIFC has played. He's talked about how all those that had speculation about the role of SIFC, those have been laid to rest. He also said the begging bowl has been broken and investment is likely to follow very soon as far as the UAE is concerned, to the tune of $10 billion. Followed by other countries like Saudi Arabia, and of course there's also China, that Pakistan is hopeful of investment from there also. Overall, things seem to be moving in the right direction as far as stabilizing is concerned. The role of the SIFC and its overall effort in stabilizing things, of course trying to garner investment also, and boosting confidence as far as local businesses also. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.